All right, let's get started. But first,
The intro.
happy birthday.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. No thanks. I prefer to not be perceived. Thank you for those who have wished me a happy birthday. I am one step closer to death.
You best not be.
We all are. From the moment we're
That's
born,
nice.
we're dying.
Thank you.
And none of my
That's
attitude
nice.
today is colored by the fact that I'm reading Everything is Tuberculosis. None of my, and I had some, and this can maybe be bonus content because I've had a couple people ask me what I was reading, and then I've had a couple more people say that they would like a recommendation because they read Song of Achilles and they really liked it. And that made me giggle and kick my feet. Thank you so much for reading my book. I am reading Everything is Tuberculosis right now by John Green. It's very good. It's a short read. If you want a gay book, this is not that. You can DM me and I will send you gay books. But this is the history and persistence of our deadliest infection, and it is very horrifying, but it is very important for us all to read. That's my intro. Happy birthday to me.
Well, yeah. Anyway, happy birthday, baby. We love you, and your little bright spot. But let's let's not do a Chernobyl chaser tonight, okay?
I have 2 episodes of the most recent season of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Oh, there you go.
So that's what I've been ending my nights with.
It still cracks me up that you're watching Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
I like religious cult stuff, and
I
that's
know you do.
really what it is.
I know you
I'm
do.
not a big reality. It's because I'm not a big reality TV show watcher.
You're not, and that also just seems like far too much tomfoolery for you.
I think it's because they're so far. It's almost like fantasy to me, because they're so far removed from anything
reality
that I am or could be.
Yeah.
Like their lives are just so completely. It's an entirely different world, and that's interesting to me. I'm gaining knowledge
sense.
as I'm watching it.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Where did we leave off? Well, we need to do the intro. We haven't even gotten there yet.
All right. Well, okay.
Hit it.
All right. Hello, and welcome to the Shelf Aware podcast. I'm Ren.
I'm Lizzy,
the birthday girl. And we are two sisters, two lit obsessed sisters who love to talk about our favorite books, our favorite movies, our favorite TV shows, and analyze them in great levels of detail. We are picking up with Kip and Scotty boy. We are still on episode 3. This is episode 12 of the podcast. Welcome back. A few reminders, as always. We are once again focused exclusively on the show. I'm not going to explain again why. So just know that going in. And then the other reminder, as always, is that if you are sensitive to spoilers, we will talk about future episode tie-ins. We also might mention down the road, we might mention like if things are foreshadowing, we'll talk about kind of like some foreshadowing. So if you are sensitive to spoilers, just please keep that in mind as we proceed. The other thing that I want to just touch on briefly is we got a lot of comments after last episode. At the end, Lizzy and I were talking about kind of how we're going to approach season 2. And a lot of you made the very good point that one of the things that, go ahead.
No, tell them what your idea was first?
Oh,
tell them what your initial plan was.
That we take 6 weeks off work?
No. Your original plan was we could theoretically record 4 episodes at once and keep up with the show as it released.
Yeah.
That was the original plan.
It's a terrible idea.
And it was a plan for exactly 2 seconds.
Because as
And I
soon as
said
the
no.
words came out of my mouth, I was like, no, that's horrible. No, but what a lot of you said in the comments that was a very good point is that, as I just mentioned in our reminders, is that one of the things that we do so much on the show is we do talk about how all of the episodes tie together, and we would not be able to do that if we tried to keep up with the show. So, what we will do with season 2 is basically kind of like what we did this time, which is that as the episodes are dropping, I will probably, not probably, I will post kind of live reactions on Instagram. I'll probably break down certain scenes as they're happening, just kind of like what I did this with this season, although I'll be starting with everybody instead of starting 4 episodes in. And then what we'll do is after the show ends, however many episodes it is, we will then start picking it apart on the podcast. So we will handle season 2 just like we handled season 1. Thank you all for for putting us at ease on the comments on that. But yeah, that's what we'll do. That's what we'll do. And in the in between, I think we've talked about doing an interview with the vampire. But yeah, I think I saw somewhere that season 2 they're thinking a premiere in April. April 2027. I could be making that up, but or the internet could be making that up, but I think that's what I saw. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, but don't you guys worry. We are here for you. Anyway, where we are today is again, we're picking up with Scott and Kip. We are picking up actually in the morning after their first hookup.
Hmm. Hmm.
Scott had asked Kip to stay. Kip stayed. Very sweet moment. And then the next morning, Scott wakes up to the sound of blending. He wakes up.
He's in a much better mood than I would be.
Okay, so this is what I put in my notes. I said, okay, so Scott wakes up, he comes out, Kip is blending. And then Kip sees him and he goes,
Did I wake
did
you?
I wake you? Bless his heart. Of course you did, Kip. But what I said is that you could tell they're in the honeymoon phase for sure because Scott comes out and he's like, versus like,
Your
dude, what the
children don't do
fuck are
that
you
to
doing?
me. Your children
Huh?
don't do that. Your children don't do that to me. When they like rampage through the downstairs and wake me up at the ass crack of dawn,
Mm, mm-mm.
they
No,
don't give a
no. Not when Aunt Lizzie's here. It just it's a run and tackle situation.
Yeah, no. Scott being like,
Ah,
it's fine.
but yeah, you could tell they're in the honeymoon phase, and it's not the like, dude, what are you doing? Wait, wait.
Well, with how tightly Scott is wound too, I cannot imagine he like peacefully wakes up to the sound of a blender. I would be like, my whole body would be rigid. I'd be gripping the sheets with my hands. Waking up. Do you know what I'm saying though? Like I
You're
would be
waking up in a panic.
I would be
Yeah, you're like,
startled
oh
awake.
god. I think that's. I mean, especially because Scott is so used to like living alone.
He
I'm
lives
surprised.
alone.
I'm surprised that
And
he
he
isn't a little bit more startled. He's you know what it is though, is it's like conditioning where he has begun to associate the sound of a blender with Kip and he's like, it's fine. It's all fine.
Skip.
It's Kip.
It's a skip.
But he gets up and he's like he's looking at Kip in the stand in the kitchen and Kip kind of starts nervously like rambling. He's like, I looked in your fridge and I was gonna surprise you, but I looked in your fridge, you basically had all the ingredients, and I know I shouldn't be snooping, but I didn't have to snoop too much because you're very organized. Like he's just kind of rambling, a very nervous ramble. And he's like, I thought since I'm not working out or since I'm not working today, but you still have your game, you probably still want your and like this whole time Scott is like stalking towards him
Hmm. Hmm.
like a panther. And then he just picks him up like he's nothing. Just picks him up and says, can I fuck you? And Kip goes, absolutely. And why wouldn't you? So yeah, we get this cute little moment where Scott is like clearly just so happy to have him there that he doesn't care that he was woken up by a blender. But then, so they have this moment, the can I fuck you? Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it cuts away and they presumably do their thing and then we're back at the counter and Scott is having his smoothie and Kip is like, okay, so I should probably go. So this is like his kind of
Mhm.
second.
Mhm.
And I do think it's more out of I don't think Kip necessarily wants to go. I think he more is just kind of like trying to be respectful and be like,
Yeah, like, not trying to
well,
overstay his welcome.
yeah. Yeah, I think he's like, okay, well, because the night before he was like, well, I figured you got to get up early, like I should
Yeah.
probably go. And then here now he's like, okay, I should probably go. And I think it is very much a like he's trying to be polite. He's trying to, like you said, not overstay his welcome. But Scott kind of goes, hmm, what if you didn't? And Kip's like, go? Yeah, like ever? And Scott kind of chuckles a little bit, but he also kind of shrugs.
He's like, if you wanna bring that up, if you wanna
Like
put that on
he,
the table, like,
like
that's
Kip is still in like kind of a jokey place, and Scott is kind of there, but he's also very, I think, very nervous because he's like, he knows that
yeah.
that is exactly what he means. Um, and then Kip goes, "Fuck, all that serial killer talk was you warning me, wasn't it?" And again, he's kind of trying to keep him in that jokey place, or he's still very much in that jokey place,
Mhm.
but Scott is kind of quiet. And I think that is when Kip starts to sense, oh,
But
this
yeah.
is something.
Mhm.
And so Scott says, he says, I'm going to say a bunch of things, okay? And I know I'm too intense. Everyone tells me that, but I can't help it. This is such a I remember watching this scene for the first time. I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh, Scott." And I think this is almost kind of this I know I'm too intense. This is a negative self-talk thing that he's learned, kind of like Ilya with lazy.
Mhm.
But, where he's been told this over and over again. Um, and so he has this negative self-talk, but even with that, he needs to say it. So he says, "Is that okay? Can I be too intense?" And Kip kind of is like, "Yeah. Yeah." I think Kip too is very unsure. He's not exactly sure what to expect here. And then Scott says, "Yeah, I never do this." And you can see Kip kind of looks off the side like, "Oh, wait." I think this is the first time Kip really realizes the significance
Mhm.
of Scott asking him over, because Scott is, even though he's very clearly nervous when he asks him out, he's pretty casual about like, you want to get takeout. And I think this is the moment when Kip realizes like, oh, this is
This is more important than
this
that.
is a big deal. And I think it's probably one of those moments too where he's kind of starting to look back over a few things and being like,
Mhm.
oh, okay.
Well, and I think he's mentioned I should probably go a couple times at this point,
Hmm.
and I think that's very normal behavior if it's, like, a hookup,
Casual.
like
Yeah.
a one night stand, and up until that point, that is what Kip's understanding of it has been,
Yeah.
and then Scott starts saying that, and he's like, "Uh-huh, maybe I've misinterpreted this."
Well, I think Kip is kind of very much still thinking like this is like a casual thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe it could lead to something else, but like right now I think he's very much thinking like, okay, this is a casual thing. And but then Scott starts to say, he goes, I've never brought anyone back here, like ever. And then he goes, my life is complicated. And that's when you see Kip kind of go, yeah, yeah, I get that. And I think here Kip is almost kind of starting to be like, well, wait a minute. Now is he going to give me kind of the like, hey, this was fun, but
Mhm.
like, my life's
Mhm.
really complicated. I can't offer anything more right now, the whole shtick. But what he says instead is he says, my life is complicated and I can't come out right. I can't come out, not right now. And that is where I think you really kind of start to see the realization start to settle in for Kip, because he
Mhm.
kind of nods slowly,
Mhm.
like, okay, okay, so that's what this is. And again, Kip is out. Kip
Yeah.
is not used to hiding, but I think he, of course, understands, and he's kind of nodding, and then Scott keeps talking. He says, too many people depend on me for too much, and it would fuck everything up. And so I just thought I would wait, I guess. I would wait until hockey is over. This is a very similar conversation to the one that
I
Shane
was
and
just
Ilya
gonna say,
eventually have.
yeah, to Shane and Ilya saying, "The only way this is gonna work is if we make it out of our hockey careers unscathed, and then we
Mhm.
can genuinely be with each other."
Yeah, I mean, it's this idea in both cases that they're having to wait to start their lives because of this pressure and this microscope that they're under, and it's like Una says at the table with the boys, she's like, "Well," she's like, "Wait, that's
That's so
sad."
sad.
And
And
it
then
and
Ilya
it
gets
is
that look on
sad.
his face and he's like, "Yeah, well, what the fuck do you want us to do about it?"
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
and I
this sport, this community has given us careers and our livelihoods and, there's a reason that so many players feel this way and they're so sure that it would not be an accepting community and that's just it's hard and it's horrifying. And I
yeah.
feel like I've seen a couple comments of people saying, I don't really know why, like I feel like they're over exaggerating their hesitation and
Mhm.
I will just say like you do not know what that's like until you're in that position. Like you can't know. You absolutely can't know. And I think there's a difference between different sports as well. Like I think there are specific sports that like are much more welcoming
Mhm.
to queer athletes coming out in general. And then there are sports that are very much not. And hockey is unfortunately one of those that is very much not
Mhm.
sometimes. And
Yeah.
so I, it's just
Yeah.
hard.
I mean, I think the thing too that we have to remember as we're watching this show, and I think it's hard sometimes when shows are set or any media is set in the very recent past,
Recent past, yeah.
but it is set in the past. And so I think this year, because this is ahead of the Sochi Olympics, so
Mhm.
this is pre 2014. So this is probably like 2013, right?
Mhm.
Same-sex marriage was not legalized nationwide in the United States until 2015.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where, yes, it is more common now, but even
Oh,
now,
it's still
it's a huge deal for an
yeah.
athlete to be out. It's, even now we talk about athletes that are being out at the Olympics and that they're, one of the
That's like
first
one of the first
athletes.
ones. It's
There are no
mm-mm.
there are no other out players at this time, and so the only example that they have to follow, that Scott has to follow, that Shane has to follow, that Ilya has to follow, is hiding, because that's what everybody else is doing. This is before
Yeah.
same-sex marriage is legalized in the United States. This is before, as we talked about in the Olympics episode, this is right around the time that, like, Russia has just passed, legislation that actively works against the queer community. So, I mean, this is still that's a very real fear.
Yeah.
It's a
What I was gonna
very
say,
real fear.
the fact that we've not made significant progress since this has happened in terms of the number of athletes that have to be queer and are just choosing to not come out
Yeah.
tells you across all sports tells you how big of an issue it is
Yeah.
and tells you how real it is.
Yeah.
Um
I think one of the trends that I saw that was really cool, I think, shortly after the show came out is so many athletes getting on social media and saying, when I watch Heated Rivalry, all I can think about is how much it would have helped him or her, and it's like a picture of themselves as a young athlete and when they were
yeah.
hiding. And, we've seen several athletes now come out and say that, like, that Heated
Mm,
Rivalry has given them some courage to come out. This is still a big thing. This is still a very realistic fear, and I think to look at it and say, "Well, it shouldn't be." Yeah, it absolutely shouldn't be, but
it
that
shouldn't
is
be, but it
it
is.
shouldn't be, but it is. I mean, this is still very much something that a lot of athletes are dealing with, and not just athletes, that a lot of queer people
People
in general
not feeling
are
comfortable, not
yeah,
feeling safe in the environments in which they exist
yeah,
to release that to like be open about that information.
yeah. So, I mean, I think the message of the show, just as much as is, about Scott and Shane and Ilya and what they're going through as closeted athletes. I think also it's very much the very big message of the show is also, how do you create how do you create support and systems where the people around you do feel safe to come to you. Like, how are you a Rose? How are you an Elena? How are you Svetlana? Or
Mhm.
all of these different people that are in their support networks. Like, it is setting a guide. It's definitely it's meant to be looked at not just for the people that are struggling to come out, but also for the people that are around the people that are struggling to come out, and how do you help make it safe enough for them to come into light. And I think that's one of the things that you really see Elena being being such a huge guardian of when it comes to
Mhm.
Kip, is being that person that wants to keep him in the light, that is really trying to make sure he stays in the light. Because as we go through this episode, what you see for Kip is just how much he ends up in the dark as part of this. And it's not intentional.
Mm-mm.
It is not what Scott wants to do.
Mm-mm.
And but Scott can't see the way out right now. And
Mhm.
so, that's why he's even saying, he says, I think maybe if I could fade away a bit. But then he goes, but he goes, I want you so bad. And this is, I think, the same thing for Shane and Ilya, where it's like it's wanting a person enough that you're willing to risk it. And for
Mhm.
Scott, Kip is that person. And this is going to be the thing where it's going to make him start looking at things. And the thing is that Scott isn't happy now. It's not like
Mhm.
Scott was happy hiding. No one is ever happy hiding. But it's not like Scott was happy hiding and then Kip comes along. I think it's more just Kip comes along and he finally has a reason
Mhm.
to he because Scott is so much about other people. And then it's finally
I was gonna say he like
it's
finds something to fight for because
he
he's
finds
not gonna
something to
fight for.
fight for, and I think it is partially it's the impact of knowing that he's bringing Kip into the dark, that is gonna be the thing that helps Scott realize that he has to step out for
Yeah.
both of them.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think it is so heartbreaking for Scott because you see him just struggling through this conversation, and this, again, is so similar to the conversation that Shane and Ilya are gonna have, and, um, you know, also very similar too, where Shane says to Ilya, "It's not just that I'm gay, it's you," and Scott's kind of saying something very similar where he says, "I want you so bad, you, and it's so bad." And Scott says, "I know you barely know me, so why would you even consider?" And he says, "This is fucked up. Like, I know it's fucked up. I get it. I'm not pretending that I'm not, but I really, really like you." And my heart breaks for Scott in this scene because he's saying, "This is fucked up. I know it's fucked up. I get it." And then he goes, "I'm not pretending I'm not." Like,
Mhm.
he's thinking he's the one that's fucked up, and
Yeah.
it's the situation.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
situation is fucked. And that's what's very similar to when Rose tells Shane, like, this is not a problem, is something you can fix.
Yeah.
There's nothing This is not Scott. Scott's not the one that's fucked up. The situation
Yeah.
that has been created that makes Scott feel like he has to hide who he is fucked.
Yeah.
That's fucked. So, he says, I really, really like you. And he goes, and I want you to stay. And then he goes, so I'm asking for what I want. I get the impression that this is the first time, maybe ever, that Scott has asked for what he wants. I think, again, they made such a good decision in making Scott, I think, older here
Yeah.
than Shane and Ilya in a way, because I think you do just kind of get more of the impact of understanding that when Scott says, I want you to be here when I get back from practice later, and I want you to be here when I come home from my game tonight. I want you more than I've wanted anything in a long time. You feel that long time,
Mhm.
and you feel how alone he's been. That
Yeah.
what he really wants here, this is not just a sex thing for Scott, this is a companionship thing. He's
Mhm.
lonely.
Mhm.
He just wants someone there in
Mhm.
his house. He doesn't have any family. His friends are other hockey players that they're not, I mean, he probably sees them sometimes outside of games, I'm sure, but he
Yeah.
wants somebody there for him.
Yeah.
that doesn't have another home that they're going to. He wants their home to be his home.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that he really wants. This is not a sex thing for Scott. Is sex part of it? Yeah.
Mhm.
But the thing that Scott really wants is a person for himself. And you could get
Yeah.
the impression, I think, very much how long he's been needing this. And because at the end he goes, he does get scared. He says, but I think he just couldn't help but ask. Like he says, I just can't help it. And at the end he goes, is that too much? And I think that all of us who've been told at some point that we're too something, I
Mhm.
think I think all of us want to hear is that we're actually just the right amount. And I think that that's where you hear him say, like, you can say if it is, but do say something. And what Kip ends up saying is, I think I'd love to be here when you get back. And I think
Well,
that's so sweet.
oh my god, that because Kip doesn't say anything for a couple seconds,
It's
and
agonizing because he
he
comes around.
and I feel like
Yeah.
Scott, whenever he doesn't say anything immediately, he's like, "Oh fuck," he's like, "No, this is gonna be so bad," and then
Hmm.
Kip is like, "I'd love to be here,"
I'd love to be here. Yeah. You
and
think you'd love
that's
to be here when you get back. And then he says, I don't think you're too lazy to be a serial killer, which I think was such a good thing because he's kind of breaking the tension a little bit. He's putting Scott at ease and saying, like, it's okay. I see you. Like, and yeah, I'd love to be here. And and so Scott kind of starts laughing a little bit. And
but it's
Kip's
also
like, yeah,
like
you're definitely not
painting
lazy.
it's also painting like that thing about Scott that he perceives in himself to be very negative. It's painting
Yes.
that in more of like a joking and like in a light way.
Yeah.
As in
Yeah.
like I think everybody has characteristics about themselves that they perceive to be negatives, but are positives in a lot of ways. And I think
Yeah.
if you were to like interview Scott's teammates and be like, why is Scott such a great captain? And I guarantee you they're going to bring up the fact that he's so analytical and he's so organized and dedicated and he's so precise in anything and everything that he does. And
Hmm.
does that get in the way of him sometimes? Does that get in his way sometimes? Yes, but I think it's a lot easier from the outside looking in to see in what ways it helps him be who he is. And I think that's Kip poking a little fun at that and being like, there's nothing wrong with being the way you are. Like it's okay. That doesn't weird me out. That doesn't scare me off.
Yeah.
And so I think
Yep.
everybody that's on some level wants to hear that from somebody they love.
Well, and I think too the follow through that it's not just words because Scott does go to
Mhm.
practice and he comes back and Kip's there and he's reading his
Oh,
art
hell
book.
yeah. Doesn't he, like, jump over the couch or something? Or, like,
Yeah,
he
he like
goes
dives on the
straight
couch
there?
because he walks in and he sees Kip and he is just beaming. And
He's like,
Kip
"Oh my god,
says,
hi."
he goes, hey, how was practice? And like it's such a casual, but I mean, again,
They're
this is
so domestic.
they're so domestic, and this is something that Scott has just been craving. You can tell how fucking, like, jazzed he is that Kip is
Yeah.
still there, and he, like, tackles him on the couch. Um, but it's such a sweet moment, and then there's some music that starts playing that's very upbeat, and I think the name of the song is maybe something like Lumiere or something like that. The name of the song, I think, is an allusion to light.
Mhm.
But what we see is that in the next scene, Kip is talking to his dad, he's watching the game, and he's lying. He's saying with Elena, and once again, the scene is lit very dark because
Yeah.
now Kip is in the dark along with Scott because now they're lying. Now Kip is lying. He's lying to his dad. All of their sex scenes, there's a couple sex scenes that we get kind of interspersed in this montage.
Mhm.
They're in the dark
Mhm.
too. In I think both of the sex scenes, Scott, even in one scene, I think Kip starts on top, but Scott flips him. And so, I mean, they're like in both scenes, Scott is on top. They're both in the dark. This is a very, very intentionally done where they're setting up this dynamic that
Mhm.
Scott is controlling this relationship and where it is, and it
Mhm.
is in the dark. They're both in the dark now. So Kip is continually through this
Yeah.
montage. He's shown as being very in the dark when he goes to the bar. and the bar is repeatedly dark, but this is where he's kind of in all cases lying to his friends.
Mhm.
His he comes in, his friends are asking where he's been. He says, "Oh, please, I saw you 3 days ago." And then I think it's Sean who goes, "Single since forever, overworked like she has two wicked stepsisters. She gets a man and vanishes." What a cliche! Like, I do love Sean, but he again, he's lying, and even when his friends
Yeah.
are like, "Kyle, keep the boyfriend on the TV at all times," Kip says he's just a customer. I mean, it's just he's repeatedly lying to
Well,
the people that are closest to him.
and again, the same thing with the hiding thing. In modern media, this is oftentimes portrayed very negatively, right? This is like a sign of like a toxic relationship, is if you feel like
Yeah,
you have to like lie to your friends and family about who you're seeing. And I think just the added layer of Kip is not doing this because he wants to, like, he obviously doesn't want to lie to his friends and family, but
mm-mm.
he's not lying for him because, again, he's not embarrassed of Scott. He
He's
has
lying
to
to
lie
protect Scott.
because he's
Yeah.
protecting Scott, and that's, there's again, there's no other option.
Well, and we see that Kip has this tendency, and we talked about this, I think, in the very first Scott and Kip episode where he's talking to Elena, and I think Elena calls him she she says, "Well, Maria's much smarter than you." And then she goes, "And this idiot," pointing at Scott on the screen. And Kip protects Scott, but he doesn't protect himself. And that's
Yeah.
what we're seeing here too, where Kip is protecting Scott, he's not protecting himself. And
Mhm.
so we see him repeatedly lying. Then we see Scott come into the smoothie shop. This is where Maria makes that like extra banana joke. But I mean, the smoothie shop is still light, which is good. So, I mean, it's like Kip is still kind of in the light sometimes. But Scott comes in. He says, "Not sure what I'm going to do without these on my road trip. Pretty sure." And then Kip says, "Pretty sure they have smoothies in other cities." And Scott says, "Not like these, they
Not like
don't."
these.
And then he leaves, and Maria goes, "Do you really think this is a secret?" And Kip goes, What's a secret? Nothing's happening. He's just flirting with me or whatever. I think he's straight, I
Yeah.
think."
Girl.
Girl.
Ugh.
And so I
It,
think that
you have to lie for your mans, but do it better.
well,
You're
and
not doing a good
Kip's not a
job.
good liar is the thing. And nobody's believing him is the thing because they
Ugh.
all know
They
Kip.
know him
They
well.
all
They
know him
know him
and they
well.
know and I think this is one of those things where again because Kip has not lived hiding himself. And when you compare this to how well Shane is able to deceive everybody, because Shane has spent so much time hiding
Yeah.
that people don't know him. And I mean, he especially with when it comes to Ilya, Shane has been hiding Ilya since before his teammates knew him. So they've
I
never known him not hiding Ilya.
To be fair, he doesn't hide some of the stuff well, and we've talked about
he
that,
he
but
doesn't
people don't know what
yeah.
his baseline is. Will
Well,
be.
they only I think, like, well, Shane's teammates, they only know Shane like this. They don't know any other version
Yeah.
of Shane,
Yeah.
but then Shane's parents, they do know Shane. And I think this is what's so hard for Yuna, like, at the very end, where because she does really,
Yeah.
really feel like she knows her son, but her son has been hiding something of this magnitude from her
Mm,
because they're and successfully,
yeah.
might I add,
Against all
because
odds.
against
He's
against all
successfully
odds.
hid it for that long.
But I think it's like one of those things where the switch up here is that is Kip going from living his life freely to hiding. And that is the big switch up versus Shane is when that really shocks people is when he stops hiding. And his mom is like,
Yeah.
"Wait, why is
Oh,
Ilya Rozanov behind you?" Do you know he's behind you? Do you know that Ilya Rozanov is behind you? But so, I mean, I think this is just that juxtaposition of just seeing how, because Kip's friends do know him and because he hasn't been hiding, like just seeing, they all know he can't hide from them now. And so, we just see this again and again. He's trying to protect Scott, but nobody's buying it. Everybody knows. Um, but then we're back at the apartment again. Scott is geeking out over pasta salad. Kip's like, "There's pasta salad in the fridge." He asks where it came from. Kip's like, "I made it." And Scott is fucking pumped for this pasta salad.
Oh, he's
Scott's
such
a
a
big
slut for the
acts of
domestic.
he's
He's such a oh.
he is. I think he's also like a big acts of service guy. Like it's the thought that
Yeah.
somebody could be, but also just the thought that somebody's thinking about him is a big
Well, and
thing
it's
for
it's
Scott.
also initially I think Scott was like, okay, Kip went out and bought it and brought it back to the house, which is super thoughtful. But then Kip is like, nah, I made that shit. And then
I
Scott's
was
like,
in the
oh
kitchen doing
hell
stuff.
yeah. Oh hell yeah. He's so
If
excited. And then what follows is I think my favorite. I think honestly the next couple lines are like my favorite interactions between them. Is
yeah,
the
I know
I'm not
exactly.
I'm not just a hot
I know.
I'm not
I'm,
just I'm not
I'm
just a
not
pretty
just a pretty
face.
face.
And he's like, no, of course not. And then what even happens to what does
He said
Scott say?
he says I'm not. He said
Oh, they're talking
Kip's
about the art. They're
the
talking about the
art.
art.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kip's like, "Oh, this is my artist." And he's like and Scott's like, "Oh, I could get some art." And
I
Kip's
should
like,
buy some art.
"I should buy some art." And Kip's like, "Oh, really?" And Scott goes, "I'm not just a pretty face." And Kip goes, "No, no, no. You're also a really hot body."
A very, very odd body. And true. I tell you what, if whatever Kip needs in his life moving forward, I feel like if he just made Scott a dish, like Scott be like, anything you want, baby.
So easy. Wrapped around his finger.
I mean, and I don't think it would even have to be hard. I mean,
No.
it's the tuna melt school of wooing. For these,
Oh
I do
God.
think there's something to these hockey players. Like they're traveling all of the time, and they're never home. And so
They
I think
love getting shit cooked for them
they
because it never
love they
happens.
love a home cooked meal. And
They're eating well, and that's like so valid though, because like they're at hotels all the time. They're
they're
eating hotel
yes,
food and like takeout. And if they have a nutritionist, which I'm sure they do, they're making like to go meals and stuff. And it's not the same as getting hot food or fresh food prepared for you. And it's not the same food that the entirety of the rest of the team is getting served to
no.
them.
Well,
Like
there's
there's
also
something,
it's the
oh,
thoughtfulness and it's the time spent and it's. I mean, that's having somebody make a meal for you is like, especially something that they make that knowing that you'll like it, I think is such
yeah.
an act of love. And I think that, I think that's why you get Ilya doing his little happy pasta dance, which I know, I think Connor's story has said that he didn't even know he was doing that, but it had just been so long
That's
since he
just,
had
he
pasta.
just needs to eat a noodle. He
It
just
was-
yearns for the
I
noodles.
completely understand because I also do that
No.
little dance when I eat pasta, but I think Scott is so happy here. And I do think what's
Yeah.
interesting, this scene and the scene right before where Scott comes into the smoothie bar, and then here when Kip is making Scott pasta salad, these scenes are lit. They're brighter. And so I think we do see here that Kip is bringing light to Scott, but Scott is bringing Kip into the dark. And ultimately one of those things is gonna win out.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, we have this really cute scene, like you said, where Scott is fucking jazzed about that pasta salad. And Kip says, I'm not just a pretty face. He's like, oh, but you're a very pretty face. And then he takes an active interest in what Kip is doing. He's like, what are you looking at? And Kip says, it's an artist I love. He has a new show out. And that's when Scott's like, I should buy some art. And that's what he makes I'm not just a pretty face either, Kip. Yeah, you're a very hot body. And there's tomfoolery on the couch happening. After that, there's canoodling.
Uh-huh.
And it's just a very cute moment. But then Scott and Kip, I think because they have these really cute domestic moments and then it like whips us back into like reality is very like I get a lot of whiplash watching Scott and Kip's episode because they have this really cute moment on the couch where it's just the two of them. They're in their little bubble, and then they go to kitty cat. Sorry, people on the podcast won't understand. One of Lizzie's cats just came up on the screen to join the conversation. Now, is that Batman
Oh yeah.
making biscuits?
He's a cuddler.
He's a
Oh,
snuggle bunny. He's a snuggly boy. So they decide to go to the gallery, and immediately what we see is Scott is kind of incognito. And this is very similar to when we see Ilya walking out of the airport to come up to Shane's British sensible car. But this kind of, again, this feeling of having to hide while they're out in public. And Kip can tell how nervous Scott is, and he says, "We don't have to do this." And Scott says, "It's cool." He really
Dude, he's
wants
trying
it.
so hard.
He
He's trying
wants it to
so
be cool.
hard.
And so they kind of start talking, and they're looking at a painting, and the painting they're looking at to me looks a lot like the smoothie shop. Like I couldn't exactly tell what it was because I was watching on my phone, but um, they're looking at this painting, and Kip kind of starts saying, like, this could go here, not on the fireplace wall, but on the way to the bedroom. And Scott, like, compulsively shushes him.
Yeah.
I don't even think, I think he just panics and he goes, shh,
Yeah, no,
shh.
I agree.
He's so nervous and on edge. And then immediately he's like, sorry, sorry. And so Kip says, okay, it's okay. Maybe we should, kind of like maybe we should go. But then a woman walks over. She kind of starts asking if they're browsing or shopping to buy. Scott is so uncomfortable. He kind of
Oh, he
angles
just
away.
panics. Yeah.
And then Skip said, Skip, Kip says, think we're just browsing right now. And Scott he's so, I think it's the we're just browsing, it's a coupley sentence. And I think he's so anxious and on edge that he can't take it, and he leaves. And, oh my God, Kip says,
Dude, I'm telling you, Cot is their couple name.
Cot is not their name. I
Cot is the
refuse to call
couple
them Cot.
name.
No, I refuse. Anyway, Kip says, sorry, he's not feeling well. And so I really was interested to see how they were going to play this scene, because I could see Kip being very hurt as we're leaving the scene because of Scott's reaction. But again, to your point, I think Kip does understand that Scott is trying. And so when they get
Yeah, he's
back to the apartment, um, you can tell Scott is kind of on the verge of a panic attack. He's breathing heavy. He kind of
mhm.
throws his hat and glasses, which is like kind of like an aggressive, like you
He's
can tell
frustrated with
he's
himself.
frustrated. He's frustrated that he has to hide. He's frustrated that he couldn't just go
He couldn't be
out
better. Yeah.
and look for art. And again, Scott is so focused on everybody else, and I think he knows he kind of let Kip down here, or he feels like he let Kip down here. And so when Kip comes in behind him, he says, "I'm really sorry. I thought I could do that." And Kip says, "It's okay." And Scott says, "No, it's not. I know it's not." This is very similar to like the "I know I'm fucked up" kind of
Yeah.
language. And Kip just hugs him, and Scott he like sags into it, and he kind of like puts his head on his shoulder. And it's a very like reassuring hug that's very much like Kip just being the boulder for Scott to
Comforting.
like to
Yeah.
collapse against. Like, I think he's just
Yeah.
like he is the rock in that moment. And I think
Mhm.
you see how upset Scott is. Like, he doesn't
Yeah.
he does want to go out with Kip, and he doesn't project any of that on Kip. So he doesn't yell at Kip, or he doesn't say like, you shouldn't have done this or that. Like, it is purely just like Scott is
Yeah.
frustrated with the situation,
Yeah.
and feeling like he can't be with the person he wants to be with,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
no,
is,
he's 100%, that's like in his mind, it's 100% Scott's fault. Like, it's his own fault.
yeah,
He
yeah,
doesn't expect anything else out of
yeah,
Kip.
yeah.
Um,
Agree. So, the next scene we see is after this is we see Kip. He is mailing his applications, and then while he's
mhm.
out, he looks over and he sees something for we know that he's seen something for Scott. I think there's also a poster like on the bodega that I think is like maybe one of Rose's movie posters. So he mails the applications, he grabs this gift, and then I think the next thing we see is Scott is packing, and he says these road trips are just killing me. I mean, it's brutal. And I
Mhm.
think we've talked before on this podcast about just how many games
The
hockey
hockey
players
players are
play
playing.
in a year. And it's a lot. They're
Constantly on the
traveling
road.
a lot. They're
Yeah.
constantly on the road. And I think this is, again, kind of just showing Scott's been doing this for a really long time. You do get the sense that he is maybe ready to be done. He's
He's
yearning
burnt
for something
out.
else. He's
He's
burnt
burnt
out.
out.
He's
It's
burnt out.
hard, like, doing that is hard. It's so hard physically on your body physically. It's also
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
mentally taxing.
Yeah.
Just it's
Yeah.
it's just, oof, God, I can't even
Well,
think about it.
especially when you consider that Scott on the road, it normally doesn't go well. Like he's
Yeah.
had, especially this last year, it's not gone well for him. And so I think that's part of it too. And he does say, I think I'm cursed. And he says, hey, I'm not the only one who's superstitious. And then he starts to kind of teasingly say, would you be jealous if I got my smoothies from another guy? Kip
Yeah, probably.
Kip from the other was like, yeah, baby, probably.
Yeah.
And then Scott says, what if I filled you in on all the all the juicy details, like how he blended them? And
They're so
then
cute.
Kip comes in. He goes, or what if you always had them with you? And so he gives
Scott's like, "What?"
Scott this gift. And again, you get Scott is so delighted. I doubt he gets a lot of just random gifts. I mean, he probably gets something from maybe his teammates on his birthday or but
It's one of those things where it means so much, not because they're worth anything. They're worth, like, they
yeah,
were from a bodega, they're not worth hardly anything, but they're so specific and personal and representative of something so important to him
yeah.
that, like,
Yep.
that is what matters.
Yeah. So he opens these up and Kip again is kind of I and Kip does this a lot, this kind of um
It's, like,
like
self-deprecating.
self-deprecating. Yeah,
Yeah.
where he's like, I know it's dumb, but I saw them and I thought of you. And Scott says, I love them. I love them so much. You do get the impression that Scott is talking about more than just the socks. And so they have a really, really good kiss. The kissing on the show again, top tier.
So good.
So good. And then Kip goes, can I fuck you? Scott goes, absolutely. They they have a lot of these little inside jokes, and Shane and Ilya do too. Like kind of like some of the things that like one of Shane and Ilya's is that is like like Ilya does that thing to him a lot where he's like Mr. Businessman. Mr. Like they have their little or boring or
Yeah.
they have inside jokes. But Kip and Scott do this a lot. And
They
I
have
think
they have a really they've they have a similar sense of humor, I think.
they have a similar sense of humor, but I also think this was a very intentional thing that Jacob Tierney did in that you just don't have a lot of time with Scott and Kip at all. Like that we get this one episode. We don't have a lot of time to really build their relationship out. And I think by having all of these little inside jokes, you get the idea immediately that they have really bonded and there is very much a sense of connection because they have these inside jokes. So I think that they're used even more here in
Mhm.
Scott and Kip's episode to kind of very quickly build this sense of closeness between them because we just don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, we just hit the one episode.
These little inside jokes I think are really important just not just for Scott and Kip but from a narrative perspective too. And then the next thing we see is Scott is really thrilled with the socks. He is
He's
wearing
taking a
them to his
photo of
game and he takes
them.
a picture. What's interesting though is he doesn't send the picture until later. And then we see Kip, he's watching at the bar. Scott is away, but he's scoring 2 goals. And the announcer says, the curse is broken. And I do think that this is an intentional thing to kind of use the same wording that Scott just used because I think it goes to show you again, when you saw at the very beginning of this episode, Scott is listening to the podcasters so that
Yeah.
this is probably something, this idea that he's cursed is something that he's probably picked up
Yep. Yep.
from podcasters, announcers. This is a negative self-talk that he has gotten from a source. And so now you hear them kind of repeating it, but now they're saying the curse is broken. So, and for him is he's gotten these 2 goals. This is a huge deal. But then Elena is there and she turns off the game. What I love about this is that Kyle looks at her and he is once again eating Chinese food that Elena has brought in from outside. This is something I think
Which
we
you're
forgot.
not supposed to do.
which you're not supposed to do. And he yells at her earlier in the episode about it, but then
He
she
goes,
also
"Shut the
says,
fuck up,
I
Kyle."
brought you I brought you yours extra shrimp. So I think this is something, I think we forgot to touch on that earlier, but this is something that, again, Elena, showing how close this friend group is, that Elena has once again brought Kyle food and he's eating it, and that
Yeah.
there's genuine love and affection there. So Elena turns off the TV and she looks at Kip and she says, "Say it out loud." And Kip
Girly
goes,
has his number.
"Oh God," she does. And he goes, "It's not." And she goes, "It's what?" And then she goes, "Here's what I know." As Kip starts to, he goes, "Shut up." She goes, "Shut up." And then she goes, "You're in love with him." I love her. Girlfriend is direct. We love her.
Well, it's
Um,
just you're watching from her perspective. She knows something's up with Kip. Like she can
mhm.
see it happening, but she's also very aware that he's lying to everybody else intentionally.
Yeah.
And
And
so you're
yeah,
you're she's just watching her friend sabotage himself and make himself
girl.
unhappy. And so I think
Yeah.
it probably got to a point where she's like, enough is enough. Like we gotta have a come to Jesus moment about this.
Yeah. And Kip says, he tries to lie to her again here. He says, "I'm not in love with him." And she goes, "You are." And then she goes, "Have you at least told your dad?" And she looks so upset when he hesitates because she knows. She
How
knows how
important that
close
is. Yeah.
Kip and his dad are.
Yeah.
So she says, "For how long now?" And he goes, "A little over 2 months." And she goes, "Oh, baby." She knows the fact that he's been hiding this is a really big deal. And this is something that is not usual for Kip.
Hmm.
And Kip kind of immediately gets nervous. He says, "You can't tell if anyone finds out." And then she goes, "That it's Scott." And then she says, "Obviously, I'm not going to tell." And then she kind of starts to say, you kind of get the sense that she's gearing up to say something about it. And Kip again comes to Scott's defense. He says, he can't come out right now. He really wants to. And he says, "It's amazing. He's amazing. And I've never been happier." And then he goes, "Honestly." And the way he says it, you can tell that he's lying.
Hmm.
And the truth is, he does love Scott and he does think Scott is amazing. But again, no one can be happy when they're hiding.
Hmm.
And that's what's happening. They're hiding. And so that's why you have Elena say, "Okay, so what's the plan? What's the plan, babe?" And Kip says, "I don't know. I don't know." And she asks, "What does your dad think?" And Kip says that I'm fucking some married guy. And Elena says, "I kind of wish you were."
I almost interpreted that as her being like, I think you doing that would be an easier situation than what you've put yourself in. Like I think there's a very clear right and wrong there with that.
Yeah, that would be
And
a
with
very
this, it's
clear.
just like,
Yeah,
and she
yeah,
says it later. She says it later on in the episode, like to Scott, she thinks he's a good guy
yeah,
too, and he deserves
yeah,
happiness just as much as Kip does. And so I think she's very aware that like this is an unwinnable situation. Like there's no good answer. It's
yeah.
gonna hurt them both. It's already hurting them both. And neither of them are really at fault for it. So it's not a cut and dry, you're doing something wrong, so you need to stop and be done with it.
Mhm.
They haven't done anything wrong. And she knows that, but she also knows that it's not feasible to keep doing it.
She knows that it's one of those things that it will make it's already making Kip unhappy, and it's
Yeah.
going to continue to make it.
It's only
And
gonna get
and
worse.
it's only going to get worse, and because Kip's not going to be able to hide forever, nor would
Yeah.
she want him to, nor would he want to. And so eventually it's going to come to a head, and it's like it's going to hurt even more then. Because
Yeah.
it's he's already in this deep. It's only been around 2 months, and he's already in pretty deep, and so I think she is thinking like, "Oh my god." And no, I completely agree with you. I think it's one of those things where if he was fucking a married guy, it would be easier. That is a clear
Mm,
case of right and wrong, and she could just be like, "Hey, stop it. Stop." But it isn't. I mean, it's literally just two
mhm,
people in love
mhm,
that and they're not harming anybody. They're not, Scott isn't married, that, they're not cheating, they're not doing anything wrong.
Well,
They're
and her
just, it's,
suggestion her suggestion is never, like, break up. It's
no, it's, but you
like,
guys
he
have to
has to
figure it
come
out.
out, like, you
Yeah.
guys need to be open about this. Like, that's the solution to her. It's not like, and if it was a right or wrong, it would be like a, "You need to break up with him," but she knows that it isn't a
Yeah.
right or wrong situation, and, like, the solution is really hard, but, like, that's the only solution that exists.
Well, and what, as she ends up saying, it's she says to Scott, she's like, he deserves sunshine and so do you.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, she does feel for both of them. She's very protective of Kip, but she also understands for Scott too, like, he's never gonna be happy either. And
Yeah.
so, I think it is heartbreaking. And, so when Kip says, "Please be happy for me," she is struggling with that. But
Mhm.
she does kind of give him a pass here, and she says, "I can't wait to see you in a tux tomorrow night." So we're kind of getting a hint again that there's gonna be something that we're gonna see. And Kip says, "I'm going to be super well behaved." And she says, "I only care that you're handsome." And, Kip says, "You bitch." But then he says, "Scott's going to be there too." And she goes, "Oh, I know. And he better be ready for me." So you kinda get this idea that you're like, "Okay, we're heading for a point here. We're heading for an altercation."
Yep.
Um, or not even altercation. We're heading for, like, this is all gonna kinda come to a head here. Um, and I think we see that even more in the next scene because after he leaves Elena, we see Kip at the smoothie shop, and even the smoothie shop is dark now.
Yeah.
He's leaving, he's locking up, it's dark, smoothie shop is dark. He gets a text from Scott. Now, this is very similar to, again, Shane and Ilya watching the Scott and Kip's kiss later. They're watching when the rooms are dark and the only
Mhm.
light, one of the big sources of light is from their phones. That is what we see here with Kip. He's getting light from his phone. He's getting light from Scott.
Mhm.
Where Scott is showing an example of how Kip is bringing him sunshine in his life and bringing him light in his life. And he takes a picture of the socks. He just now sends the socks. And I think this is another thing with Scott being superstitious where
He
like
didn't wanna
I know
jinx it.
exactly, because I'm a superstitious person myself too, and so
Yeah.
I would think if I was Scott, if I text this too early, I'm gonna
Yeah.
jinx it and it's not
Yeah.
gonna work. So now he waited until it actually worked, and now he's like, "This is my good luck charm," which
Yeah.
is so sweet. And then he
Yeah.
says, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." Left a little surprise in the closet. So then we see Kip reading that text message, and then he's in the apartment. Again, the apartment is so dark.
Dark, yeah.
So dark. His dad calls. And again, the light from the phone is the main light in the room, his dad being like the source of light for him. And his dad kind of starts teasing him. He says, "Oh, he's not dead." But then he does make a point to say, he goes, "I miss you." And he's like, "Are you going to be making an appearance soon?" And so you do get the impression again how much Kip is withdrawing
Yeah.
from his dad because he doesn't want to have to lie to his dad. So he's just avoiding his dad.
Mhm.
And he says, "Yes, I will. Dinner this week for sure." And then they kind of start talking about something else. His dad starts talking about somebody at work. Kip calls the guy that he's talking about an asshole twice. And his dad goes, "You talk like that." And Kip goes, "You did. You talk." but but I think, and this is such a cute moment, but I think it's also meant to
Yeah.
be again that like Kip's dad taught him not to hide. And this is what
Mhm.
he's hiding. And so it's so heartbreaking because I think you see Kip just really struggling here. He's had this conversation with Elena. Now he's talking to his dad. He's having to lie to his dad again, and then he talks about the other thing that's on his mind, which he asks about his applications, and his dad says, if there was something I would tell you, and then he says, don't worry about it. Don't think like that. It's gonna come when it comes. So he's
Mhm.
he's again kind of trying to be that source of reassurance for Kip. And then he says, "I love you." And Kip goes, "You too, Dad." And he goes, "Ew."
Wrong answer, kid.
Right. Then he makes him say, "I love you too." And I think again, just the importance of how being intentional with the things that we
They
say
love so loudly. Yeah.
and loving loudly and loving really loudly. He's been taught to love loudly.
Yeah.
And so then the light goes out from the phone
Uh-huh.
and Kip walks in the bedroom and he looks in the closet and there's light that comes on from the closet, but it's a very artificial looking light.
Mm.
And the suit is hanging in the closet and the suit has a note on it. This is for my man.
S.
Yeah. So we get this. I mean, that is a very pointed metaphor to have the suit hanging in the closet with the note. This is for my man. And you do see Kip kind of react, and you understand that this is
Mhm.
Kip is recognizing too that this is unsustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so frustrating because you're like, on one hand, like it's sweet, right? Like it's sweet that Scott is like leaving, like when got Kip a suit. I'm assuming he got it probably tailored to his measurements and left a little note, called him my man.
Yeah,
And, that's very sweet on the outside looking in, but like with the context
yeah.
of it, it's like, I got you a suit because we're gonna happen to be in an event together tomorrow. We're not going as a couple. We're not gonna be able to act like we know each other. If we talk at all, it's going to have to be as though we're meeting each other for the first time. And it just, the context is everything in that situation.
Well, and I think it's yeah, I think it's like what you just said. It's like he's got my man on the suit, but then to anybody else, he's not.
Yeah.
He's not. No one
Yeah.
knows. It's
Yeah.
the secret that's in the closet. Is no
Yeah.
one else knows. No one else can know that. And and Scott is trying to love him in the way that he thinks he can. I mean, it's not meant to be. I don't even think Scott really recognizes the significance of it. I think Scott is
No.
like, this is I want to do this for him. I want
Yeah.
him to have his own tux and I want him to have something from me to wear because we're going to be at this, like you said, we're going to be at this event. We're not going
Mhm.
to be able to be together, but at least I'll know that he's there wearing the tux that I bought him and
Mhm.
he'll have something of me
Mhm.
and you know it, it's what he can kind of offer at the time and it is heartbreaking because it's not coming from a place of Scott being dismissive or callous
Mhm.
about Kip's feelings. It's not
Mhm.
at all. It's just this situation that Scott is in is and the sense of responsibility that he feels that overrides everything,
Mhm.
is just heartbreaking
Yeah.
because it's leaving both of them in the dark. And now Kip is in the dark too.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So but I think it's and what's so interesting about this episode is I think when we started this too, I think in the very beginning of this episode, I remember watching this and thinking they're so cute. I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. I mean, they are so cute together. And I
Mhm.
think, but Jacob Tierney is
Boy, what
so
a turn
good.
we've taken within one episode. Well,
but
not even within one episode, within like 25 minutes. Like we're still
yeah,
gonna do another episode after this about the end of the episode.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, like what a shift and fairly seamlessly. Like right, like and there are moments where you feel it get darker, but it's just like you feel like this story is so much longer than the 55 minutes that you get of it on TV. Like it
yeah,
feels like we've been growing with these two as
yeah.
they've been getting to know each other. It feels like much longer has gone on.
I think I did feel very attached to them very quickly because I think I was just like, oh man, because I think you're like, oh my god, they're so cute. But I think that this is very. I know we talked about this with Kay when she was on the podcast a few episodes ago, where I think one of the key differences between the books and the show is like I think the books very much it's like which is often the case for romance novel. They tend to be pretty light and airy and funny at times. Not all of them are, but like,
Mhm.
it tends to be pretty light. And then it's kind of interrupted by these moments of seriousness or these moments of heartbreak or and the show really kind of flips it on its head where it's like it's much more of a drama where there's
Mhm.
there's quite a lot of heartbreaking moments and then the moments of levity.
And you're like waiting. You're sitting
Yeah,
on the
you
edge of your
need
seat
something.
waiting for the happy moments, and like
Yeah,
you're so
well,
tickled pink when it happens.
and I think it's like Jacob Tierney does too. What we see Ilya do for Shane, where Ilya breaks the tension with some jokes, and what Kip does
Yeah.
for Scott in the same way, Jacob Tierney does to us, where he's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I've been putting you guys through it. Here's a little joke, so you guys
To
don't
like
start."
keep you going. Yeah.
And so I think especially after the we didn't even kiss, like we needed a little bit of levity with Scott and Kip, and we're like, "Oh, that's so cute," and then it's like,
Oh,
wham.
and then episode 4, pain and suffering.
Well, and not even we get like halfway into episode 3 and it's like, and you're back. But I think that's why the emotional payoff when we get to the cottage and not even the cottage, but when we get to Scott and Kip's kiss on the ice, it does feel so triumphant because
Yeah.
we've been through it with these characters and we've seen what they've gone through. And that does feel, I mean, you talk a lot, I think a lot of people talk about how healing that
Mhm.
moment feels to
Yeah.
see them out on the ice and to see them have that moment in the sunshine and it's because there's so many things as we go through the show where we really empathize with these characters and we see ourselves in these characters and for them to go through all of these things and then to make it to that moment does feel very healing and does feel very triumphant because Jacob Tierney set it up really really fucking well.
Mhm.
And I think that's why it's such an incredible episode of television. But then to have the ability to get into the cottage and for that really to just feel like a balm on the wound, and
Yeah.
it is just happy and it's full of
Yeah.
sunshine. And I think it was really good that at the beginning of the cottage episode that we have the moment with with Kip and Scott, like seeing that they're together and they're happy. And because these characters work really hard for their
Yeah.
happy endings. They go through a lot. Anyway, I love them. Mm. And I do really wonder how Scott and Kip will be brought into season 2 because I do think they will be in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I honestly kind of wonder if Scott does retire at
I
some
hope
point.
so. Give that man a fucking break.
Because he
Let
kind of
him let him retire in the countryside with his man. Let him have like 2 dogs. Like,
I because I feel like you do kind of in the show, and again, we haven't read the book, so I don't. But like, I mean, I think in the show, like, you definitely do get the sense that
he's almost done. He's
he's
like
not but done.
he's
He's about
sticking
done.
around because he is the glue for that team. And he's like,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for another like up and coming player to take over like
Well,
what I'm doing.
and I kind of wonder if it's going to be Vaughn. I don't know what happens in the books. The show makes a point to show Scott passing the trophy to Vaughn,
Yvonne, yeah.
and I think that while I know that Jacob Tierney didn't know he was going to get a season 2, he put things in place so that if he did,
Yeah.
it would be fine.
Yeah.
Because
He was setting
not
himself up for
so
success.
he set himself up. Not there's so many things. I think especially in the cottage episode, but there's so many things that he left for himself to pick up if he got the chance. And
Mhm.
he did it in such a masterfully subtle way that I think you can't I think if the show had ended where it does and you don't get a season 2,
Mhm.
it feels very complete.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
there are definitely pieces that can be picked up. And I
Yes.
think that, even things in this episode, I think there's definitely things that can be picked up.
Yeah. I agree.
So, I think, he's a man with a plan. I think he left the threads there for himself to pick up if he got the opportunity for sure. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that this is an episode where it's one of those that I see people say that they skip, they skip, and I'll be honest, like I tend to watch 4, 5, 6 more
Yeah.
than anything else, like that
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
But I do think that this in the flow of the show is really important because it does just like hammer home
Mhm.
how big that moment is when Scott
Yeah.
does finally choose himself and choosing himself for Kip. Like,
Mhm.
so that they can be happy together in the sunshine, so they can have that moment, and then so others can too. And like we talked about at the very beginning of the episode, creating that blueprint for
Yeah.
other characters to follow,
Yeah.
because at this time there isn't one.
They walked. They walked so Ilya and Shane could run.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and others.
And others.
I think this is probably a good place for us to pause, and then we will wrap up Scott and Kip next week. We will keep to our 4 episodes an episode cadence that we have going on here. I know I said 3. It's just a lot to
I
talk about.
thought 3 too, and then I was like watching. We really did not get through a lot last episode.
We
We
didn't
this
get through
this
a lot
episode
last
probably
episode.
feels very like content dense for people that are listening to them one after the other. But we got through a good 4.5 minutes of television last episode, and we talked for almost 2 hours. And so I was like, we gotta
We had
hang
things to
tight
talk
today.
about. There were things to talk about.
Yeah, but also this was a very heavy section of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
episode, so
yeah.
it doesn't lend for it. Some pieces of the episodes I feel like we like joke around a little bit more about, but these are some like serious conversations, so there's
These are
just
some Yeah, no, I agree. I think these are some heavy pieces, but then I also think too, Scott and Kip's episode, because they not that I do think this is one of these shows that every scene is performing some sort of function to the overall story.
intentional. Yeah.
There's yeah, everything is very intentional. There's not a lot of throwaway scenes, but I think that Shane and Ilya's story is moves at a pretty quick pace just because again of that 6 episode format.
Mhm.
But Scott and Kip's story has to really fucking move. And so there is a lot packed into pretty much every
Every
scene.
scene.
Every scene is really, really intentional. There's a lot of very intentional things from the dialogue standpoint, from the lighting standpoint to that cat.
Batman just yeeted. Well, I shouldn't say he yeeted himself. He bit my toe and he
Well,
fell off.
oops.
Sorry.
But
As you
no,
were
I was just gonna say, I was just like, I
each
think there's just a lot.
every yes, every episode is like, I think every scene in the show in general is very dense, but I think with Scott and Kip specifically, like even every line serves a significant purpose.
I mean, there's really not a lot either where they're not talking. Because I was thinking as we
Yeah.
were getting into this, I was like, I remembered they had that cute little kind of like sexy montage. And I was like, okay, we're going to get into the montage. And that lasts for a while. And
Yep.
there's just not
Yeah.
a lot. And their sex scenes, even those, are pretty quick.
Yeah.
They're not. And I think, again, it's because,
I think sex plays less of a
yeah,
defining role in their relationship than it did
I would
initially
agree.
for Shane and Ilya.
I think it's
So,
very similar. And I also kind of think it's priming us a little bit to go into later episodes of Shane and Ilya, because it's a lot like episode 5 where there's like no spice, because again, the focus very much needs to be for Shane and Ilya, the communication. They have
yeah.
to talk, they have to. And here is this a very similar thing where yes, there are sex scenes between Scott and Kip, but so much of the focus is not on that. It's on the companionship, and it's about communication, and then it's about these things that they're having to kind of navigate to be together. And because they
Mhm.
only have the 1 episode, there's just not a lot of time.
Yeah.
So truly masterful. Jacob Tierney, what a king.
Yep.
But yeah, but we will leave you here, and we will pick up again with Scott and Kip. We'll wrap Scott and Kip's episode, and then we will move into episode 4. And we will do our Q&A before we do, though.
Yeah. We will do an episode 3 Q&A like we've done for episode
Then episode 3 Q&A. Don't feel like you have to limit yourself just to episode 3. You can do episodes 1 through 3 if you like, but we will probably get into a lot of the 4, 5, 6 in episodes 4, 5, 6. But but yeah, but we're here. We're here for you during this time, during this drought. We're here. Not that Hudson and Connor really let us get any peace, but we'll keep going and get into episode 4. I'm gonna need.
We're gonna have to get drunk.
I'm gonna.
We're gonna have to get drunk. Well,
I'm gonna need a drink for the club scene,
but you're gonna need a drink for the club scene. Yeah,
I have a really hard time with the club scene, guys.
I'm probably not gonna talk a lot of that episode because it's one of those where I like.
Good.
Again, it's one of the ones like if I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it more. Like
that'll be an interesting one.
I feel so strong. It's just you for 2 hours just like lamenting by yourself, and I'm just like, yeah, I really liked it. I really
that'll
like
be
it.
a good one.
I like just the general pain and suffering that they seem to be in. I think that that's really good. I like that Ilya looks like he's going to commit a crime. I really like that look. I like that look on him.
I know you love a suffering moment. I
love a suffering moment because I know ultimately it does not end in suffering.
Hurt comfort. Yeah. I
read a fic the other day that just I misread the tags. It just said hurt. And I was like, wait.
You're like, wait, where's my
comfort? Where's my comfort? Went back to the tags and it said hurt, no comfort. And I was like,
oh no.
I was like, that you need to word that differently, sir. That is sneaky.
No,
hurt, no comfort is crazy.
I mean, I do. I like some sort of trials. Like, I mean, I like the drama.
It's worth it. It feels like
yeah. I think it's like in any good story, I think there's things to overcome, there's trials, like you kind of like you have to have some stakes, right? Mm-hmm. I think to make it interesting, and then up to your exact point, to make the payoff worth it. But I am all about the comfort part of the hurt comfort, but guys, I have a really hard time with the club scene. I haven't talked about it much, even on Instagram, because it hurts me to watch it. It really does. It hurts. It's not even the club scene. I think is so good.
It's what happens after the club scene.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm gonna have a drink for that episode.
Let's have your husband make us painkillers again.
Oh my god. I was literally just thinking that. I was like, oh my god.
I didn't get tiki drinks again. Mine. I'm sad about it.
It was really good.
In the same way that Scott was really excited about that chicken salad, I was really excited when he made me tiki drinks and cheesy potatoes,
Lizzy spent her birthday weekend with us, which we were very excited and honored. And my husband is a very good. Speaking of cooking as a love language, that is absolutely one of my husband's.
He doesn't do anything nice for me, but he does cook for me,
You guys have such an antagonistic sibling relationship. But
I did bring a friend up with me, and he asked me, he goes, do you guys legitimately not like each other? And I was like, no, we do. It's a bit. We're just extraordinarily committed to the bit. In a way that nobody in the history of the world has ever been as committed to the bit as we are.
What's so funny though is your versions in the bit are so different, where you're just like, oh my god, and he's just laughing his ass off in the kitchen.
I'm trying to think of what a similar dynamic is to liken it to, but he really just does his best to.
Well, he has 2 sisters, so he's not he's completely unfazed. But he loves you.
He texted me the other day to tell me that he sent me a TikTok, and it was about having to hide all of the cookware from my friend because they're pansexual. He said that to me, and he's like, "That's you." I have to hide my pots and pans next time you come up. Thanks, King.
You know,
That's his love
listen.
language.
He loves it. And that's such a dad joke too. And
I
you know he
know.
laughed his ass off
It's,
when he
he
saw
does,
that.
and it's just like every time you see a video that's like, send this to your gay friend, he sends it to me every time, without fail.
But no, but you can tell because he made you your cheesy potatoes and he made tiki.
Iconic.
He made like 4 or 5 different tiki
So
drinks.
multiple different tiki drinks.
Was happy as a clam in there, and then he made bread, and then you guys went home with 6 dozen eggs.
Oh God, yeah. I was just telling somebody about that earlier. They're like, "What are you gonna do with those?" And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna try and give them away." Well,
If you
Derek
put
didn't
them in
take
the
his.
fridge, they're good for a really long time because they farm fresh, baby.
We're rambling.
Anyway, happy birthday, Lizzy.
Thanks.
She loves
Thanks.
it. She loves it. So, all right. Well, we love you guys, and we will see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.